G'day, how's it going? Sholstein Photography here, and I'm asking the question, do you file and forget, or do you sometimes go back and check? So what do I mean by that? I mean, do you file your photos away once you've done your editing on a hard drive and just forget about them? Or do you sometimes go back and just check to see if there's a photo that maybe you missed, one that was an opportunity that you didn't take advantage of, or perhaps you didn't have the knowledge or the skills to be able to bring a photo out from whatever it was. And after some further development of yourself and your ability to actually edit, you find that there's a photo that perhaps you could have gotten that at one point you didn't think you could. I often go back and check, and the reason I do this is you can find some photos and get some photos that you probably didn't realise were okay at the time, and now that you've developed some further skills, you can actually make a decent photo of it. So I'm actually going through some Wanaka photos at the moment, so we'll go through and have a look at some of the ones that I didn't edit and see if there's something that we can actually pull out of the photos. So you can see here, I'm in my Wanaka files. I've got a number of photos that I haven't actually done anything with. Can usually tell pretty quick which ones you've done something on. There's usually the number in Lightroom to suggest what you've actually looked at. So for me, it's basically just a matter of going through and checking those ones that have obviously not had anything done to them, and just seeing if there's a photo there that I can get out of it. So for instance, here's one. Nothing's been done to it. If I go into the basic, you can see nothing's been changed here. Could be a number of reasons why I haven't done anything with this one. Could be I've got something similar, or sometimes it's just a matter of you get a little bit over the editing and you don't look at everything that's there. But I look at this one and I think, there's a photo here. So let's just see if we can work on this one. Start by just changing what we've got here. We wanted to see that it's coming into land, so we want to put part of that the runway in there. Obviously I want to keep the mountains. Basically it's just a bit of a small crop, just to get rid of some of this stuff that's not really needed, to show that we're coming into land at Wanaka Airport. So we'll just see if we can grab the sky here. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a blue tinge. Just play with the sliders a little bit just to see what we can get. Take the exposure. Just make that sky stand out a little bit. Yeah, let's create a new mask. Let's go with the background. Okay. Can't detect the background. Shouldn't really make much difference. Most of this picture's background, so let's just see if we can actually pick out the subject. Okay, struggling to find the subject as well. So what we'll do then is we will go in and create a mask. And I'm going to select object here. And I am just going to zoom in on the plane. Try and get that selected as an object. Obviously there's a lot going on in this photo. Lightroom hasn't really been able to single this plane out as the subject, so let's just try and give Lightroom a bit of a helping hand here and pointing out what parts we actually want. Alright, let's bring it down into the wheel here. Might be a bit of work we need to do after this as well. Alright, let's just see how that picks that up. Actually done a pretty fair effort really. Just want to zoom out a little bit and just make sure we got everything. I actually think that's done a really good job of picking that plane out, considering just how cluttered that background is. Alright, so anyway, we've picked out the plane. Let's just see if we can bring that up a little bit, make it a little bit more obvious. The highlights down, the shadows up usually does it. A little bit of saturation there. Go back to there. We'll have a look at what it was before compared to what it is now. You can see it's a little bit brighter. Alright, now seeing we've picked out the actual plane here, what we're going to do is I am just going to hopefully so I've just inverted that. So I've duplicated the mask and I've inverted it, so now the background is what's actually been selected, and the subject has been deselected there. Just going to subtract the sky, and let's just see what we can do with the rest of this picture. So let's play around with the exposure a little bit. Yeah, I like that, a little bit darker. Get a little bit of contrast. What we'll do with the highlights, let's have a look. Yeah, don't really want to touch the highlights too much, just shadows. Bring them out maybe a little bit. A little bit of temperature. Play around with the saturation a little bit maybe. Can either take it down or bring it up. I think bringing it up a little bit's nice. Just get in there and show some clarity and texture. Alright, so what we've done so far, you can see, put a bit more of the colour out. You can see the plane is a little bit brighter. Made the mountains and the sky just a little bit clearer. It's a bit hazy here, or it's not quite as hazy now on this side. And so now that we've done that with the masks, we can now start to just play with the overall picture and just see what's going to work for this one. Let's bring the shadows up a bit, a little bit of clarity. Let's just see what a little bit of dehaze does for the mountains. You can see what dehaze is starting to do for those mountains, but you can see that it's really affecting that front part as well, which I don't want. Bringing the mountains out would be nice, but I don't really want to do the same to that sort of more foreground area. So what we might look at doing here is actually just going back to this mask. Okay. Didn't actually want to do that. Didn't want to duplicate and invert. I just want to duplicate that mask. but I want to get rid of this foreground type area here, so I'm just going to go into subtract, going to go select object, going to make it quite large, and I'm just going to do this whole front foregroundy type area here. Just see how well Lightroom picks this up. I'll grab the trees in a minute. We'll just get this main part to start with. And you can see it's done a fairly good job taking out a lot of the stuff that we want to take out. So let's just go into subject again, select object, and I'm going to take out this grassy area here. Hopefully if I'm just picking out that grassy area, it'll now get rid of the rest of it. Okay, didn't do it by selecting object, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the brush. And I'm just going to take it out with the brush. Alright, so let's just come up here. There's some bits here we want to get rid of as well. Just that little bit there. It's not really mountains in the background. Get rid of that bit. And now I'm going to try subtract a luminance range. I'm going to choose something in the trees, and hopefully that'll take out trees. Nice, that's pretty much what I wanted. Now this is the area that I wanted to affect earlier without affecting this area here. So now that I've selected just the mountain area, we'll go back into the dehaze and just bring a little bit of dehaze in there. Look at that. I think that's much nicer now. When we look at what we started with, very, very hazy. I know it makes that foreground really stand out, but I mean, we got some snow-covered mountains in the background. It'd be foolish not to bring those into the picture. So a bit of dehaze into here brings those mountains right in. Still got the photo of the plane here. We brought the plane out a little bit, and I think we've actually made a pretty decent little change to this photo. Now it's just a matter of going through and seeing what else we can do. See if we can add a little bit of vibrance. Yeah, a little bit, we don't need too much. Go into the color grading. See what we can do with the midtones here. Yeah, I think if we bring them up a little bit, that works. Shadows, maybe bring them down a little bit. Normally take them up a bit, but I'm just going to bring them down in this one. And the highlights, maybe just up a little bit. Go into the detail. Let's do a little bit of sharpening if we can. We'll see if we can just sort of reduce it down to... Okay, so I don't really want to sharpen that area. I was hoping to be able to just do the plane, but it's not going to work. So we'll just get a little bit of denoise in here. See what difference that makes. Now if we just zoom in, let's see if that's made any real difference. Hasn't made an enormous difference. It's made a slight difference. Anyway, I'm pretty happy with what we've got there. Let's make sure we've got our lens correction in. Now it looks like we're using the Tamron 150 to 600, so let's just add that in. 150 to 600. Take that off, see if it makes a real difference. Let's change it a little bit. Should we put a little vignette on? Probably doesn't really need much of a vignette. and then we just make sure our colours are what we're wanting. If we pull that red too far, we get a lot of yellow in there. Don't really want that. I want the nice red of the nose shown, but I don't want to make all this colour change too greatly. Take a little bit of the green out. Put a little bit of blue in. And there you go, we've taken that photo from the one on the left to the one on the right, and I just think that's a really nice, if anything, a nice scenery type photo, a landscape type photo. The plane being in there, pretty much just a bonus. So once we've done that, let's just flick it into Photoshop. Ooh, I need to find out what I've actually called these. So I want to make the file type exactly the same. Actually, no, I don't. Normally I'd make the photo type exactly the same. But as I've already done my ordering and putting things into the folders, if I try and name it what I named it previously, I'll get an identical name to what I had previously. So just so you sort of know what I'm talking about there. What I do with my pictures is I put them into this edited folder, large, small, medium, whatever they are. But basically I've got warbirds over Wanaka and 1, and then 308 would be the 308th photo I did, and that's a large photo. So it gets that format, warbirds over Wanaka -1.308-L.jpg. So if I now put in warbirds over Wanaka, what it will do is it will put a picture in here that would be called warbirds over Wanaka -1, but I already have a -1. So there's my -1. Yeah, so if I try and do the exact file name, I'll get that, and then I'll have a duplicate file basically, but they won't be the same, they'll just be the same by name. So what I'm going to do in this case is just give it a slightly different name. I'm going to call it warbirds over Wanaka. I'm just going to call it second edit, just to give it a slightly different name. And I'll just export that, which should kick in Photoshop for me. And there we have that photo in Photoshop. If I go back to my folder here, you can see what I mean now. I've got that warbirds over Wanaka. Because I made it second edit, I've got that second edit -1. As I said, if I hadn't have done the second edit part, I would have had a -1, and I would have had the same file name as one that is already in there. So when I try and put them into my organization, my folder organization here, it would just screw everything up and say that it's replacing one. So just to avoid that, just going to put second edit. And the reason for bringing this into Photoshop is pretty simple. I just want to put my logo on it. So there's my logo. Let's get rid of that. Drop the logo on. I just find a place for it to go. I think just down the bottom left corner there will do. And now we go through the save process. Alright, so I always save it as a Photoshop just in case I want to go in and do some further editing. And then once I've done that, I'll save again. Save it as a small. So this is going to be a JPEG, but it's going to be a small version, so a low resolution one. You can see my JPEG options here at the moment, it's saying quality is 12. I'll bring that right down to 0. Save that. So I've got a low resolution version. And then I'm going to go with my large file. Now you can see in there I've got medium as well. I don't want to do a medium for this one, and the reason being it's under 10 meg, actually under 20 meg. Once I go past 20 meg, a lot of the stuff that I save to needs to be under 20 meg. So if my large file is larger than 20, I do a medium, so I've got that file to upload to my website and other various places. Being less than 20, I'll just have the small and the large for this one. Okay, so you can see that that's now giving me a JPEG, a PSD, a small JPEG and a large JPEG. And when I'm finished, I'll go and move these into the various folders. So for instance, the large will go into obviously the large, the JPEG into the JPG, the PSD into the PSD, and the small, the S there, into the small. Okay, so I'm finished with Photoshop. And I think we've done pretty well with that one. I've taken a photo that I obviously rejected first time around and made it one that I think actually works quite well. Alright, so as I said, sometimes people just file and forget the photos that they've done in the past. I tend not to completely forget about them. I might forget about them for a while, but I'll bring them out every so often and just see if there's anything that I think that I can bring a good photo out of. I mean, as I said, you know, all the time we're developing our editing skills, and at one point you might not have been able to actually edit well enough to bring one of those photos out. After working on numerous different photos and studying other YouTube videos, and things like that, you actually start to develop your Photoshop and your Lightroom editing skills to a point where you can actually get a photo from something that you couldn't previously. So yeah, that's the question. File and forget or recheck. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you've liked what you've seen, please like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell so you get notified for when other videos come out. I really appreciate people's support with that. It does help the channel. Obviously the more likes, comments I get, the more my videos get put in front of other people. So if you could help me out with that, that'd be fantastic. And I'll see you in the next one.